big deep breath. I come to you today from the unceded lands of the Duwamish people, also known as Seattle. I'm making my eastbound trip as well. When I start to feel into ancestral grief and losses, I believe that it's a conversation topic that isn't talked about so much. And I'm ever so grateful for my teachers in this area, specifically Francis Weller and Lawrence Cole. You can't do trauma without doing grief. And I've had many clients come to me, and when I take their history, right, you take the history and we see trauma, but what ended up happening is we ended up doing grief work. And ancestral grief is a rather large piece of grief work that can be under-recognized in the field of not just of trauma, but also grief and loss. So I'm going to share my screen with you today. So trauma replaces patterns of connection with patterns of protection. And this isn't just in my lifetime, it's also ancestrally. And so I invite you to pause into what has become displaced or dislocated for you in your lineage. Here are the roots of the uprooted refugee admissions in the United States over the last 20 years. And yet we know that the trauma of displacement and dislocation has happened for us ancestrally over multiple generations, over multiple centuries. And this also then contributes towards that which happens within our family systems. It contributes to the institutions and the systems that then we also create societally that has given rise to the displacement and dislocation of peoples, that then reinforces this sense of not fitting in, not belonging, feeling like I am not walking on the land of my ancestors. There's something missing that I can't name. Yeah. And so we don't get what it is that we didn't get. This feeling of feeling like we're a part of this land. And so as we pause and land into ancestral grief, we'll unpack this. Yeah. So ancestral grief, one domain of it is the sorrows experienced by our ancestors that they were not able to grieve. In terms of my own lived experience and that of my clients, oftentimes there's this upwelling of sorrow or grief or depression, yet overwhelming emotion that we can't place, and yet it's older than me. And that's where I begin to recognize that I'm doing the work that my ancestors weren't able to do. I'm moving the grief through my body that my ancestors weren't able to. And we can't grieve when we're in survival mode. And ancestrally, many of us had generations of ancestors who lived in survival mode and weren't able to grieve their losses. And now I get to do that work for them if I want to. It's also the loss of ancestors, the loss of elders. It's the loss of these relationships with them. And it's also the loss of their wisdom and their guidance. And after I was able to grieve these losses for myself, I was able to then recognize that my parents raised me in another country, bereft of the wisdom, guidance, and presence of their ancestors and elders. These are photos from my parents' wedding. My father's sisters and brothers and my mother's sisters and brothers. Yeah. And so it's the loss of the village. And for the most part, for the first few decades of my life, I looked at these photos and I felt nothing. I felt nothing because I don't get what it is that I didn't get. These days, I can feel deeply sad that I don't have a relationship with these people, that I'm not known by these people, and that they're not known to me. Yeah. You know, when our family came to Australia, many Anglo-Australians would say to us, "You're so lucky. You came out here with your family," meaning my parents and my sister. And I was well into my 30s before I realised, oh, a nuclear family is not a family in my culture. It's a disrupted, truncated, fragmented family. Village is family. And I can grieve the loss of that village. And so we have consequences as a result of being taken away from the village. It's the loss of homeland, the loss of relationship to the earth, the loss of language and stories and culture and cultural identity, and it's the loss of the ability to grieve. Yeah. We know from the research around families and under-resourced families that there are two patterns. One is homeostasis collusion, and the other one is impaired mourning. So my parents weren't able to grieve, and therefore they weren't able to be present to me in ways that were developmentally appropriate. And this then meant that I wasn't shown that my upsets are worthy of grieving over. And so I lose the capacity to know how to grieve. And this is an individual loss, a family loss, and it can become a cultural loss for the next generation of the diaspora. And then the other thing that gets lost in this is, who is the ancestor I wish to become? When I grow up bereft of ancestors, then I lose the linkages to the feeling within my body of what it means to carry and be carried, and therefore to pass on. Yeah. So I'm just going to pause here and just allow this to land. Another way of framing this is within a more expansive perspective of attachment theory. So the attachment theory comes from a very Eurocentric perspective of psychology, where there is a hyperemphasis on the dyadic relationship. I have experienced a lot of benefit from learning about the ways in which my early imprinting or lack thereof, or suboptimal imprinting, has then caused for me to move through the world in certain relational ways. And I'm going to offer to you a more expansive perspective of secure attachment. So this is what got lost in the dislocation and forced displacement. I lost secure attachment with nature, secure attachment with the land, secure attachment with people who knew how to tend to the land and how to take care of the land. Secure attachment to ancestors who had a sense of ritual. This is my father walking through the village with his ancestors, walking towards my mother's village to ask for her hand in marriage. So I lost secure attachment relationship with these cultural rituals and rites of passage that mark the transitions of time and of life across the human lifespan. I lost the connection to secure attachment to bodies and to the communal body, and to bodies as a source of comfort, and the communal body as a source of comfort and of resourcing. These are my people at a funeral. Yeah. And then there's secure attachment to time. And then I move through the world with anxious or ambivalent or insecure or disorganized attachment to time, to my body, to other bodies, to tradition, to culture, to ancestors, and to the planet. And I found this decolonized or more expansive embrace of what secure attachment could possibly mean to be very holistic and very healing for me in my journey of reclamation. Yeah. Because in the journey of reclamation, there can be blankness that comes up, there can be anger that comes up, there can be regret and resentment that comes up. All expressions of grief. Yeah. And so we can start with this secure attachment to the earth. So here is a song by Lisa Littlebird. I'll sing one line, you can sing a line back with me. You know, this dislocation or disconnection from the earth can also be turned around to become a source of comfort for us, a reclamation. Because all of these anchors of secure attachment, right? Ancestors, time, culture, language, bodies, rituals, traditions. It gives me my sense of belonging, my place in the grand cosmos of things. And this is what can get in the way of our ability to grieve, because we no longer feel like we belong to our own bodies within a culture, within time, within place, within a location. And so we can start with the earth, if you like. So I'll sing a line. If you like, you can sing the line back to me. Earth, my body. Earth, my body. Water, my blood. Water, my blood. Air, my breath. Air, my breath. Fire, my spirit. Fire, my spirit. Let's do it a few times over. Earth, my body. Water, my blood. Air, my breath. Fire, my spirit. Earth, my body. Water, my blood. Air, my breath. Fire, my spirit. Earth, my body. Water, my blood. Air, my breath. Fire, my spirit. Earth, my body. Water, my blood. Air, my breath. Fire, my spirit. And we take a breath. And within this may be grief, right? Around loss of connection to the earth. Loss of connection to ancestors who know how to tend for the earth. And the losses that are happening to the earth. A beautiful quote from Native American writer Linda Hogan. Walking, I am listening in a deeper way. Suddenly all my ancestors are with me. Be still, they say, watch and listen. You are the result of the love of thousands. There are times when I've felt lost and alone, and nature can be great solace, and it can reconnect me to the love of thousands. And so I offer this next song in that ancestral spirit. And here's where we can pause and recognize that ancestors can be bloodline ancestors, it can be professional ancestors, spiritual ancestors, the teachers of your teachers of your teachers of your teachers. It can also be activist ancestors, those who have tended to the earth before me, whose practices have then become passed on to me somehow, as someone who grows my own food. Yeah, so we can expand the notion of ancestors in this way. You are the result of the love of thousands. A song by the Peace Poets. I'll sing it through once and then I'll sing one line. You can sing the line back if you like. I did not come here alone. I carry my people in my bones. I did not come here alone. If you listen, you can hear them in my soul. I did not come here alone. Your turn. I did not come here alone. I carry my people in my bones. I carry my people in my bones. I did not come here alone. I did not come here alone. If you listen, you can hear them in my soul. If you listen, you can hear them in my soul. I did not come here alone. I carry my people in my bones. I did not come here alone. If you listen, you can hear them in my soul. I did not come here alone. I carry my people in my bones. I did not come here alone. If you listen, you can hear them in my soul. I did not come here alone. I carry my people in my bones. I did not come here alone. If you listen, you can hear them in my soul. And please know that we are the living tradition. We can choose what it is that we wish to not pass on. We can choose our inheritance. We can choose the heirlooms that we wish to pass on. It reminds me of the practice that we did the first week where we're reaching back and reaching forward and reaching back and reaching forward. And we pause as we reach back and we acknowledge and recognize what has been passed on. And we can pause and recognize that which we do not wish to inherit. And then we can pause and acknowledge those who have yet to come, those to whom I am becoming their ancestor, their mentor. And what is it that I wish to pass on, the ancestor I wish to become? And there's this living tradition that we can embody. Because oftentimes I feel into that which I wish to pass on, and then I look at the people who come to me and I see that which they're longing or yearning for as a result of perhaps not having had the ancestors that they needed. We become the living embodiment of that which we didn't have and that which others yearn for from us. And I have one more song for you. This comes from community song leader Joshua Blaine, who has a Patreon, and this song is from him. And this song he wrote for his grandmother, who is a Holocaust survivor, and was sung to her as she was at the veil. And I often think of the words of one of my grief teachers, David Kessler, who says that when we're at the veil of life, my ancestors were there to greet me as I was coming into this world. And as I leave this world, as I cross the veil into the next, my ancestors will be there to welcome me into the next world. And I found that for me to be a very comforting thought. And so here is Josh's song, a tribute to his grandmother. I'll sing it through once and then I'll sing a line, you can sing a line. We will stay and you can go. We will remember you. We will remember you. We will stay. We will stay. And you can go. And you can go. We will remember you. We will remember you. We will remember you. We will remember you. I'll sing this through a few times. And I invite whatever it is that arises for you to arise. It may be those aspects of inheritance and heirlooms and that which you wish to inherit and that which you wish to let go of. It may be specific ancestors. It may be specific strengths of generations of ancestors that you wish to hold on to. We talk so often about intergenerational trauma. There's also the capacity to land into and acknowledge intergenerational resilience through all of this. We will stay and you can go. We will remember you. We will remember you. We will stay and you can go. We will remember you. We will remember you. We will stay and you can go. We will remember you. We will remember you. We will stay and you can go. We will remember you. We will remember you. We will stay and you can go. We will remember you. We will remember you. We will stay and you can go. We will remember you. We will remember you. We will stay and you can go. We will remember you. We will remember you. I invite you to attune to that which is emergent. In this moment. Now, as you're aware, I'm not a singer, and I truly believe that we all can sing, that we all do sing. So please check out the work of all of the songwriters whom I've shared with you over the last 6 weeks, particularly the work of Joshua Blaine. The Patreon link there links to his version of the song, and in it he also sings in Hebrew. Yeah. And I know that for me, what got lost in, my family's story of displacement and dislocation is language. And so there's something that emerges for me in hearing the words of this song in another language. That reconnects me to my losses in such a way that I can grieve and reclaim in the ways that feel accessible, available, and appropriate for me. Grief is a lifelong endeavour of reclamation. And we can't do trauma without doing grief. And it has been such a joy to be with you all these last 6 weeks.
Your sessions have been so beautiful and so moving. I've really loved them. We do have a few questions. If we're a little over time, but if you don't mind staying a few minutes, we have a couple of questions. Okay.
Yeah, so the first one we have here is, what would you do for things you don't want to inherit, from your ancestors, things you want to leave behind?
We name that. We name that as an ancestral burden. Yeah. And we can grieve that which we were given that we didn't wish to be given.
Another question, how can you give something that you haven't received?
By naming it, we can acknowledge that we didn't get it. And that is and that is that unknown territory where we don't get what we didn't get. And then by naming it, we can name that we didn't get it. And then in ways that become available to us, we can begin to allow those experiences to begin to land. Yeah. I didn't know what it was like to receive support. I was the person who went through life who would bite your head off if you opened a door for me. If I came over, yes, that used to be me. If I came over and you offered me a drink or a cup of tea, I'd say no. Because I had become so unable to receive support, but I didn't know that it was something that I didn't get. My parents, they became very pragmatic and very practical, as did I. And then somewhere along the way, I named that as a loss. And then my friends would take me out to lunch and they'd say, come out to lunch. And I'd say, no. Okay, fine, I'll come. And then I'd sit there and be grumpy because I could make this food at home for all of us and it would cost less money. And in that moment, it was, right, I could name that. Yeah, because really my friends were making me name it because I was saying, Linda, just sit down and have people come and offer us food so we can sit down and eat it. Let the money thing, put that to one side. And I got to practice allowing in the possibility of receiving.
I can say I'm guilty of that as well at restaurants. Yeah.
Well, it is a practice. It can, for some of us, it can really take a long time to learn how to accept.
Yeah. Yes. And my friends would sit there and they would see how hard it was for me. And they'd put their arm around me and shake me around and go, it's so hard for you. And they'd laugh and they'd be with me in amongst my struggles and support me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for those soul friends.
Oh, absolutely. And
We-
one of my friends, I mean, one year she gave me flowers to grow. And I stared at her and I said, "What are these?" And she said, "Flowers for your garden. I know you love gardening." And I said, "But you can't eat them." And because I only grew food that you could eat. Things had to have utilitarian purpose for me to think that it was worthwhile growing. But that relational aspect was also how I related to myself. I had to be purposeful and be needed and be useful in order for me to be worthy of taking up space in the world. But I hadn't unpacked that yet. However, when she gave me those flowers, I grumbled, and then I grew them. And then I realized these flowers, they exist simply to be beautiful and to be admired. That's stunning.
You're feeding bees too. You're feeding.
Yes. Well, yes, that too. And I realized that relational aspect. It's okay for me to exist simply to be beautiful and be admired and appreciated. I don't need to please or perform or produce in order to be worthy of taking up space in this world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's in all
Amen.
these little ways that when I opened myself up to receptivity, things began to emerge that allowed me to practice.
Mm.
There's a question here. This is a quick one. What was the name of the grief teacher that you mentioned earlier?
So these are my main grief teachers. Francis Weller, Lawrence Cole, and David Kessler.
This is the last
Thank
one
you.
I'm seeing here. Is when you're in a PTSD trigger, what is a good movement or practice that you can immediately do to help?
Yes. Okay, when you're in the throes of a PTSD, knowing that each person experiences a PTSD trigger in different ways, something that I found to be helpful because trauma dislocates us and disorients us. Yeah, so something I found to be helpful is to move my heels like this on the earth. Yeah. Yeah. And that's that connection to the earth, but it's also bilateral stimulation. Yeah. And what happens during a trauma trigger is the left side and the right side of the brain start to heave apart. And we know that with developmental trauma, the corpus callosum, the structure that connects the left and the right side of the brain, becomes underdeveloped. So we become very literal, logical, rational, and or we become very emotionally chaotic. And so the rigidity can come in so that we can try and control the emotional chaos. Yeah. And so by just getting my heels touching the earth and then slowing that down, I can then begin to get the connectivity between the left and the right side. And then to begin to rock, to sway, to soothe left and right, and then to begin to take up some space. To start with the soundless sounds. And then to make larger sounds. When we're in the throes of a trauma response, we become small, we become quiet, we don't want to take up space in the world. And so that bilateral movement and then taking up some space physically and through sound then allows us to orient. Yeah, the horizons, the sky above, the earth below, and the breath then begins to return.
So helpful. So helpful. Linda, thank you so much. This has been a really beautiful series. The series is available through the link that I put in the chat. The series is available indefinitely. Today's our last day with Linda, and we really appreciate the work that you've done. It's been really, really beautiful. Thank you so much. And
Thank you, Mary.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Yeah, and
I hope
thank
that
you, Pat.
Thank you, Pat. I hope we'll have you back next year. And I want to let our TRF Tuesday audience know that next week there will be no TRF Tuesday. Trauma Research Foundation is closed, but we'll see you the following week with Mariah Rooney talking about the difference between this and that. So thank you, everyone. Linda's website is in the chat as well. You may want to copy it or click on it before we close.
No, the only other thing I would add is, unfortunately, this recording will probably not be available till next week as well, just because of the trauma conference. So that's kind of putting things on pause a little, but you will have access to view this again.
Yeah.
Probably early next week, it's looking like.
You'll have the collection of all 6 mini workshop sessions. Thank you so much, Linda. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you in 2 weeks. And happy spring, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Take care of yourselves.
Thank
Bye.
you.